What is the true path to awakening to your soul consciousness? Well, that depends on who you are, because each of us has our own path and our own awakening happening right now. And all the shadows are coming to light, and we are getting the opportunity to see what resonates and what doesn't, what's true for us, what's not true for us, and to find our own pathway navigating from our own divine connection within. Kara Goodwin is with us this week. She's the host of the Soul Elevation podcast, and she's here to have a beautiful conversation with us about your authentic awakening, not your neighbors, not your gurus, not your mothers, but yours. Join us to find out more.
Soul Nectar Show, the Soul Nectar Show. You're invited, delighted to discover who you are. Anything is possible if you believe. So join us on this beautiful journey. Soul Nectar Show, Soul Nectar Show.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Soul Nectar Show. That show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our stories of connection to that which is greater than us, the big mystery beyond the veil, to those synchronistic moments that lead us inexorably to a deeper understanding of ourselves and what we're doing here on Earth. I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird, and I love having these conversations week after week and feeling into the collective and sensing what is it that really needs to be talked about right now? Where are people at? What's the undercurrent of our experience? And then I also love how, just looking back even 10 years, I'll see an episode from 10 years ago and yeah, that was right on. Yeah, like I needed that right now. And that's kind of what happens when you tap into the timeless one within and you start having conversations with other beings that are also tapped into their timeless one within, is that, you start talking about things that are timeless soul lessons, things that we're moving through right now, but always, so no greater time to talk about how do you get in touch with that timeless one within? How do you get in touch with your authentic self? And, we're not all cookie cutter. So our paths are unique. We are walking a unique pathway towards the revelations that we need as souls to kind of strip ourselves of what doesn't serve anymore and reveal our light, our essential, authentic light underneath all that. And along the way, we're going to meet lots of friends. We're going to have conversations. We're going to be part of communities. We're going to have teachers. We're going to have guides. We're going to try different things out and we're going to see if it resonates or not. And sometimes it will and sometimes it won't. And all of that's part of the journey. But how do you get so comfortable in yourself, so maybe so tapped in to your own voice of yes and no, your own sacred choices, that you can be with everything as just part of the path that you're walking and accept it? And today we're going to really talk about some ins and outs of that conversation, because we are learning, we are growing, and there's so much for us to experience and so many hurdles and challenges we get to move through. And we've got lots of players on the field sort of supporting us with that, as well as everybody. So me too. So welcome, Kara. Kara Goodwin is with us today.
Hi, Carrie. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation.
Me too. And I'm excited to have this conversation and have it actually record. You guys, we actually had a full episode of Soul Nectar Show last week together, and it was awesome. And it started off recording, and somewhere along the line, it stopped. It
ended up being just for us.
It was just for us.
But what's so fun is, like, as we've been starting out, and you were like tuning in, where are we going? I was like, oh yeah, she gets my third eye going. This happened last time. So I've been like heads down today, like just trying to get through. There were some things that I needed to create that have been on my to-do list for a long time. And I was like, I'm just doing it. So I've been on my computer, just in this like plug away mode and very like productive mode. But I also have just been heads down. It kind of feels like my world just like got very, very small. And it was just this project that I was working on. So being in that sacred space of connection before we even started recording, I could feel the physical response within my third eye. And I was just like, oh, yes.
There we go
Here
again.
we go.
Yeah, because it happened last week too. And
Yes.
then somewhere along the line, Zoom shut down like twice and then it didn't record.
Well, that's the
after
thing.
that.
And I'm
But
sure
we didn't even notice.
I know. And I'm sure you and your viewers know that when the frequency gets high, technology glitches. And that is like a known phenomenon. And I know that you were saying like I've already recorded other ones and they were fine and I recorded, so anyway, for me, I just sort of chuckle and it's like, well, maybe we just kind of hit some sort of threshold, went past some sort of threshold and the technology was like, let me reset.
Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of happening on Earth right now. I mean,
Yes.
So Kara, actually, for you guys that don't know Kara, she is the host of the Soul Elevation podcast. And she explores ascension and spiritual awakening and energy healing, extraterrestrial friends, and consciousness, right? And so all of that comes into play. And I would just throw a little Coyote in there because I'm pretty sure Coyote was with us last week. And Coyote, if you're with us this week, please just let us finish the recording.
Those tricksters.
Yeah, that trickster. But, as a skilled energy healer and meditation guide, Kara empowers others to deepen their spiritual connection through transformation practices. And she's got a book, Your Authentic Awakening, A Guide to Everyday Spiritual Living, provides a roadmap to embracing a spiritually awakened and authentic life. And so through her work, she inspires others to elevate their souls and align with their highest potential. And yeah, when our souls get involved, fun things happen.
Yes.
Pretty much. So, I know that we talked last week, and so you guys didn't hear that conversation, but I'm just building on it. Trust us. So I know you were talking about how important it is for us to really have an authentic awakening. And I was sharing with you that I felt like that's what the Knights of the Round Table did, the Arthurian Knights. They were told you cannot follow anyone else's path to the Grail. The Holy Grail is for you and you alone. And you have to find your own path to it. And if you don't, you didn't actually find it. And I feel like that's what you're talking about is like, and that's what my guide White Eagle always says is that we have a unique thumbprint for a reason.
Yes, I love that. And I can't remember because this has been such a powerful transit time. And I feel like we recorded either on or before Wednesday. So Wednesday of last week, let's see. So 9/9. Yeah, maybe we recorded on 9/9, 9/9/9. It might have been. But, a lot has happened even since we recorded. And we're still in this transit between the two eclipses as we record. And so even when we talked about this last week, we kind of talked about the spiritual trappings and how we can be following somebody and that's really beneficial for us for a certain time and then it's not. And as you bring this up this week, and maybe we come back to that, but what comes up this time is so pertinent to this intense time that we're in right now. And I feel it's even more urgent than that message of follow, don't, if you catch yourself kind of emulating somebody and copying somebody and you're like holding on to everything that they're saying and you're not letting yourself look beyond that and feel into, is everything this person's saying, do I align with it? And are you in that kind of trap? And that is still very relevant and pertinent. But I feel that collectively the shadow is rearing its head right now and really in our faces. And this whole year, from a personal perspective, I've been dealing with the shadow almost unwillingly. It's been showing itself to me. And I am like, okay, I guess it's time that I look at these things. But it's not that I've been like taking workshops on digging up your shadows and how to deal with them or reading books on it or anything. Like I haven't sought it out. It's not a topic I've been drawn to. But it's just something that has been invited very organically. And I'm like, initially like, nope, don't want to go into that. And then I'm like, wait a minute, why? And then this curiosity comes up. And then I'm like, oh, something's here for me. And so I think when we talk about authenticity, those shadow parts are critical parts of authenticity, of really owning our own path and really owning the wholeness of the being that we are. Because, when we're working on spiritual development, it can be very easy to, one, want to be perfect, want to do it right, but also to only want to shine the light on the good. That was my approach for a very long time. It was really like, let's just focus on the good and let the bad take care of itself. Let's not give energy to it. Let's not reinforce it. I'm only going to reinforce the good stuff. And to some extent, that's okay. It's everything in due time. But I think for, when we really want to step into authenticity, we really need to look at the wholeness of who we are. And our shadows can give us such gifts. And we do this at the individual level, and we also do this collectively. So when I talk about the shadow, there are all kinds of ways that this shows up. It can be memories. That's been a big one for me, repressed memories that just show up. And then I'm like, oh my God, how did I forget about that for 30 years? That was so traumatic as I went through it. And I'm not talking about big traumas. There are much bigger traumas going on in the world, but, teenage exclusion and ridicule and kind of navigating that sort of like people that you trust humiliating you. And that kind of thing is really hard to go through in those formative years in particular. I mean, that's hard to go through at any time, but of course there are harder things than that. But those kinds of things where I was like, oh my God, I buried that so deeply. But it can be traumas that we do recognize we went through, but they're very hard to look back on. And we've gotten very good at not focusing on that. It can also be behaviors that we have that we don't recognize that we're expressing. We recognize them often in other people and they trigger us, but we don't see that we hold that also. We may not express it outwardly, but it can be behaviors that we don't recognize within ourselves or we don't own. The anger, that can be one where we refuse to accept that we're triggered and we put up plaster on that smile, even though we're seething underneath. So we're not owning like the authenticity of our feelings and emotion. I mean, I know that people know, emotion, energy in motion. It is meant to move. It is meant to we're not meant to deny it. And then it gets stuck. And then it works, it gets stuck in our energy fields. So we are meant to feel the things that rise up. And when we deny those patterns that we have or those ways that we see things, we attach something to somebody else, something that's happening in the external world, but it's actually something we don't want to deal with that is actually an internal behavior or issue or whatever that might be. So there are a lot of different ways that the shadow works behind the scenes. And that's the whole thing. These shadows are things that we repress and they're working at the subconscious level. They are informing our thoughts, our behaviors, our patterns, our actions, our words, but we don't recognize it. And so when we do get brave and we say, okay, it's time I deal with this. So in my case, for example, one of the ways, again, that this showed up this year for me were different memories that were coming up. And rather than following my knee-jerk reaction of saying, oop, nope, keep that buried, don't go there. There's a reason you don't think about that because it doesn't feel good, And I was my instinct was, oh, forget about that, turn away. And I had to take the time to process. It took a while. It took a few days to really kind of unpack what was happening and to remember it and to really feel into it and be honest with myself, because it's easy to look back 30 years later and be like, oh, it's fine. I don't even think that bothered me. And I was trying to keep my head up and deny that I was upset at the time, but I was carrying that forward with like not letting myself feel the way that it authentically made me feel. And so that's why we want to work with the shadow, because when we do take the time to let it rise to the surface and to look at it and to be honest with ourselves about how we feel about it, how it made us feel, and even looking for like, how has this informed me? Maybe it's actually protected me. Has it served me? And am I ready now to release it? So for me, in that case, I feel that there was a protective mechanism that kicked in, and it prevented me from getting closer and it took away some of my trust. But because I didn't trust as much, then it was like, well, you won't get hurt because you're not giving yourself fully. So you won't get so hurt if somebody then does something like what happened. So it's recognizing like, oh, wow, well, that was really trying to help me, really underneath it. It was that shadow was actually trying to keep something bad from happening to me, but at the cost of me being able to open myself up and really let my guard down with people. And so it's this, okay, thank you for that. And I think that I want to feel more trusting. I want to take that risk, but it's through that integration and that acceptance that, okay, I have been through that. I have dealt with it and I've integrated it. And then the energy, we talked about that repression and how it stops that flow of energy. I, made that choice to bring that part of me back in and let that energy be a part again of me, be integrated so that I have access to more of myself. And that is the beautiful invitation that we have and why we want to live in authenticity, because then we don't have these fragmented parts of ourselves. We have this wholeness, and it includes the parts of us that have been hurt, and it includes the parts of us that have hurt others too. And so again, like that's an example of that happening at the individual level, but we are going through this collectively very, very fast right now. And we have this with global issues that across humanity that we all are a part of, and we're all dealing with it. And we have some things that are coming to light in terms of the shadow in the collective and ways that we have been fed lies and illusions. And we've been told one thing and we've accepted and trusted that one thing has been happening in more than one thing. It's all connected. But of course, and I don't want to get in a lot of detail because we know as content creators, sometimes we have to dance around these things so we don't get the content pulled. But I think that people probably have some idea of the types, or, use your imagination because there are a lot of different things that this relates to. But when collectively we've been sold a belief and then we start to find out, and I think more and more and more and more people are starting to realize that a lot of things that we've been trusting are built on sand. They're built on lies. And they're horrible. They're shadows. They're things that we don't want to be a part of. They're things that are hurtful and harmful. And so that's the macro, right? Where we are all one humanity and we all have to navigate that.
Yeah, we have to navigate it. And, I think we can clearly see that we are at a collective level working through healing patterns of egoic defense that got put into place because there was such idealism for what was possible. And then there was a concurrent violence that was part of the same framework. So it's like, how does a mind reconcile those two things happening at the same time in the same family system, for example?
Right.
Like, love thy neighbor, yet we are torturing 400 years worth of people.
Right.
I mean, there's a schism in the mind to have to try to grapple with holding those two things at the same time.
Right.
We're seeing right now is like, I think it actually is healing. It just looks really messy right now because those are very hard things to grapple with internally. The complicity in many of these foundational principles that this, speaking of America, but all around the world, was founded on. And so now we get the opportunity to Like, how do you embrace the whole person? Because there's gifts of beauty in every culture. And then there's also things that are more steeped in lower vibrational human consciousness because nobody was exempted from that. Generations of people have moved through human experience at different cognitive levels. So let's say we started off with reptilian brain, right? We could probably attribute that back to like Neanderthal or something, right? And then we moved into Cro-Magnon, and then we started being able to tell stories, and we had Homo sapien. And now we're like on the verge of this entire up level of human consciousness into Homo luminous, which is a octave higher, like an entire octave higher. And so everything that is not congruent with that high level of frequency and consciousness is being shook out of the tree. And, you know, nothing ever leaves until it's been acknowledged, until it's been reclaimed in love, until it's been witnessed, until it's been honored for the part that it played in collective or in personal transformation, evolution, soul evolution across lifetimes. Nothing ever leaves until it's been acknowledged. So that's why bypassing it doesn't work. And there was many people like a couple years ago, you know, right about COVID time, I was part of the group of people that was saying, you guys, we need to look at this thing. We need to look at this because this needs healing. This needs love. That we need to look at it. Everybody needs to look at it in order to like reclaim, right? Heal the schism in the mind. And there's a lot of people like, I don't feel like I'm interested in building my business, my spiritual business, and I want to, you know, make money. So I'm going to focus there. Well, we're not moving forward without this. We can't because the next octave higher is not congruent with the human behaviors and history that has brought us here.
Right.
So we can't move forward until it has been reclaimed in love on all sides. So that's like omniscience. That's seeing every perspective. That's including all perspectives. Nobody's left out. Nobody's like, well, you're not going forward. You know, there's none of that. It's like collectively we're moving forward. And yeah, it's tense because if we don't have self-awareness on that, if we haven't done the work on that, then we are, without even realizing it, acting out an archetypal position in that whole matrix without even realizing it, playing the role.
Absolutely. And that's one of the opportunities that we have. And I say opportunity, and I'm not sure that we really have a choice, but I think on some level we always have a choice, I suppose. But in America, we have mostly left and right. You know, a lot of people are one or the other. And it's been so contentious, and it's become much more contentious even in the time since we last spoke, you know?
Oh yeah, it's gotten really stirred up.
And so I love what you're talking about in terms of things getting shaken up. And I think that we have these patterns where we look at the other side, we look at the external, you know, we project these vulnerable parts within us, these unhealed parts within us. And it's easy to then be angry at the other side. And in order to move to that higher octave, we need to unify, and we need to recognize that a very high percentage of citizens agree on like 90 plus odd, you know, topics and values. And there are these minute issues that are exasperated through the media and through these, you know, directed initiatives that are picking those wounds and agitating it. And when we're looking at the outside world to say, okay, so what does my team say about this? You know, like how you started this conversation, like, okay, who's leading me? Who's leading my mind? Who's leading my thoughts? Who's leading my opinions? Who's leading what my values are? What does this talking head say about this issue that's showing up? What am I supposed to think? Who am I supposed to be happy about this? Am I supposed to be rejoicing because this happened? Am I supposed to be upset? What team am I on? And what are we doing? And it's that I think we all need to I'm hearing a lot of people talking about critical thinking, and I could not agree more. with the invitation to think for ourselves. And it comes back to that authenticity. It comes back to the ability to connect within ourselves and to be really grounded in who we really are and really able to connect with ourselves beyond the body, beyond the thoughts, and really get centered and know what the real values are that we hold. Does this issue that's getting stirred up, does this honestly matter to me? It's okay if it doesn't matter to me. Can I see another agenda with this? Does something else, does a third thing make sense? These guys are saying this thing. These guys are saying this thing. Maybe something else actually makes sense. Maybe there's actually something that rings true for me that is a motivation behind both sides taking the stand that they're taking. And actually that third thing is the thing that rings true for me, or whatever it might be. So that is where that authenticity comes into play, because we get to know who we are and we don't feel that we have to keep up with the opinions of others, with the thoughts of others. We don't have to regurgitate it. We don't have to know what is it that is the right thing to say right now. And that's so critical. I feel like you've got something here.
Yeah, I was thinking about the third thing you were talking about. I think the third thing is a good possibility that it's our soul curriculum to practice discernment and to practice non-judgment and to practice compassion and detachment and all the lessons that as spiritual people we have been practicing, right? We've been encouraged to practice, to see things from the soul's perspective, to love everybody, no matter what, and to recognize that opinions don't generally cause physical harm unless somebody decides to become fanatical about attachment to that opinion as a part of identity and then take action based on that. And this is where all of the teachings that have been given to us as a collective, and I personally follow the Toltec teachings, and, not attachment. It's like the fifth level of attachment is fanaticism. It's where you've attached your identity to a belief system. It's like you love the Red Sox so much that if they lose a game and you get upset and you're at a bar and somebody else is cheering the team that won and the Red Sox lost, you might actually start a fight with that person with intent to kill over a baseball team. So the point of this awareness is to put it into practice. And so I feel the third thing is us getting the opportunity to put it into practice. It's like, oh, I'm attached there. Oh, I'm attached to that perspective. Oh, I lean in seeing things this way. Oh, I lean towards seeing things in this way. And I'm really inflexible about this. And to notice within ourselves, like, what are we really inflexible about? What is a no-go? And how could we soften? How could we soften? Not to change ourselves, right? Not to change ourselves, but just to create more spaciousness for other perspectives to also exist at the same time.
Right.
Like, all of it to be true at the same time.
Something that you mentioned that I think is so important that I want to drill in on is that identity piece. Having that attachment to our identity and that kind of clinging to that identity. And again, with the authenticity, when we are so identified with our beliefs and our opinions and our judgments that we can't even tolerate to be faced with an opposing belief, judgment. There's an ego over identification there. And it also is interesting psychologically to think about how confident we actually might be if we're so insecure about the things we're so sure about that they can't be tested. We don't even want to see any evidence that may disrupt that belief. And so I would even kind of suggest that maybe we do allow ourselves to be changed through discourse. Maybe we do open ourselves up and hold some neutrality, but allow ourselves exposure to the other side to really understand what it is that they really think, what it is that's actually driving the difference of opinion, rather than what the talking heads are saying, because what they're saying often is not true with the individual. It's not the motivation a lot of times, but it's that ability. I know I used to be very politically minded, and I was looking to see, what does my team think? And not consciously. I wasn't like, oh, here's a new topic. What do the people that what are we saying about this? What are we supposed to think? I wasn't consciously doing that, but I was just so immersed in the cycles that I was just picking up. You just pick up by osmosis. Okay, this is what true is. This is what true is, because you're so immersed in it. And I would get very upset when somebody had a different perspective because it threatened that view. And I couldn't even accept that there was truth in it. And over the years, I have intentionally worked on that because I wanted to be more neutral and I wanted to be more compassionate. And I recognized within myself that I was truthful with myself about that. And I have learned a lot about things that I used to be very rigid on. And I have changed. I mean, it not necessarily swung all the way in the other direction, but been able to see the narrative that I was accepting as truth and that I was so sure was true, been able to see that in a different light of like, oh, that maybe wasn't as true as I wanted to think it was. It just was familiar because I had accepted it. And then I had continued to immerse myself in it. And we get programmed. I mean, I can see that I was programmed. But what I thought was that I was in the truth and the other side was completely mind controlled and they were delusional. And so I've learned things from opening myself up and not being so afraid of what used to, honestly, if I'm honest with myself, that anger came from a place of fear, where it was just like, that's not true. That can't be true. That's not my reality. And it would come up as anger. It would come up as judgment. And it's been interesting as I've loosened that, just how much I have learned about some of the values that I saw in a more of an inverted way throughout my path.
Yeah, I think that ultimately, I love that. And I would just say for myself, what really helps me is to apply my own teachings, right? To understanding my own triggers around other people's paths that cross mine. And then to go, where am I attached? What part of my identity is fixed in this narrative? Like what you're talking about. That's the shadow work. Mm-hmm. Because being angry at stuff, I've been angry at stuff since somebody took office a couple times ago. I've had a lot of anger come up because it provokes that. But I also think it's part of the lesson plan that we're in right now. So it's not a problem. It's an opportunity for us to see, wow, this really pisses me off. This issue really pisses me off. And then to go, okay, why? Because of wounds. You normally wouldn't get mad about something if it wasn't a thing for you. If your family just told you you're so smart your whole life, and you just walked around thinking you were smart, and then somebody at college walked up to you and said, you're so dumb, you would just look at them like they were having a bad day. Like you wouldn't not take that personally. You would just say, oh, you must be having a bad day. Do you need some help? Like it wouldn't even get in because it's not even a thing for you. But most of us that adopt spirituality have come to spirituality through challenge, through trauma, through wounding, through our ancestral line, through things that have come up that are unhealed and unprocessed. And so, yeah, it hurts. And so when we run up against those things that trigger us, I feel like those are doorways of healing. It's like, oh, there's some aspect of me or my ancestry that this particular issue is really salty, like it stings. And then you can work through it to find some neutrality or some peace with it within yourself. And it's not necessarily about the other person. Sometimes, as a sage, I do like to use my voice. And so I've had to learn over the years, like, that's worth sharing. That's just your personal stuff. That's not worth sharing. To myself, yes. To my partner, yes. But out there, But sometimes it's like, no, somebody's going to benefit from this because there's other people that feel the same way. And as messengers, when we use like you were talking about people that use their voices to lead, one of the ways that we can lead is by providing insights, revelations, and pathways forward through this mess for people. That's helpful. Not giving people answers, right? Like not telling them what to think or how to think, but like offering people pathways to process what just happened, pathways to find a truth within themselves for what just happened. That I think that's our greatest service is when we can do that. Not necessarily, we got to be careful our ego's not involved, to try to win a debate. It's not about that. It's not about proving ourselves right and other people wrong. I feel it's really about providing pathways for revelation to happen and for people to try it on and see, does that fit? What's true for me in all this? How do I want to move through and find my own truth? Because it's everything happening right now, like you're talking about, is bringing us from finding our answers out there to finding them in here. That's the basic pathway that's going on right now, I think. And the lack of access, the lack of transparency. I mean, in one way, the total transparency. Okay. So I want to say, in one way, complete transparency. Yeah, because we're seeing everything. We're like, wow, at least I am. I don't know. I've got my idea that my Cowic rights, my initiation for the rights of the seer is helping me out right now. Cause I'm like, whoa, look at that. That's a whole thing going on over there. And I'm just like, wow, that's a lot. And we get to see all these things, but then knowing that is somewhat helpful, but more interesting is to then bring it inside and where does that land with me? Where am I? What is my molecule in the body of humanity doing with that information? And how do I want to process that?
Right.
Where do I want to arrive?
Right. And, that takes us to also, what a beautiful way to say that. How does my molecule in the greater being hold that? And that is such an opportunity for people who might identify as light workers or something to that effect where, the people who are listening to this are immersed in their spiritual work. And that can take many different colors, all of which we need all of them. And so again, that beauty in the diversity of the wide range of the way that people are helping from a spiritual perspective, but just that work that we do on ourselves. So whether it is bravely looking at our shadows so that we can integrate them, they can become part of us, we can get that energy moving, we get more energy that we have access to that's flowing through our toroidal fields. When we then also cultivate the ability or lean into our ability to be centered, to be calm, to refuse to engage in that swinging pendulum of right and wrong as we see it, but rather to say there's a third option. And I'm just going to hold this space here, remembering that we have, from an energetic perspective, we have a greater impact on the collective energy the more we're expanding from a spiritual perspective, the more our frequency is rising, and our consciousness is expanding out. We impact the collective from an energetic perspective, from a stronger perspective. One way that it is, one person who has done work on this would be Dr. Hawkins, right? Dr. David Hawkins, where power versus force, and he's got that scale of consciousness. And one of the findings from his work over the decades was that when you start to be radiating and vibrating at a higher level, you offset the lower. So some of that stuff that you were talking about where we're, things lower frequency, lower density, things are shaking out, higher octave. But that higher octave, everybody who's operating at a bigger, at a higher frequency and vibrating faster is offsetting more and more and more of those lower, because the lower, it's fragmented, right? It's weak. It's not focused. You can think of like diffuse light versus a laser. The more that we are in our power and attracting more high vibrational frequency to run through us, the stronger the field that we're holding. So that creates more stability in all the shakiness from the collective level. So it all comes back to the importance of our choices and the importance of us being able to be centered, to be authentic, to hold that field of our own personal field, to say, I'm not going to get pulled in. I'm just going to hold this field. I'm going to be unwavering. And that is a beautiful way that we serve without maybe even knowing it, where it might feel like, okay, I'm just feeling very drawn to meditation right now, or I just really need to have a digital detox, or I need to spend time in nature. And we may think that we're answering our own call, but what might be happening is that we're getting this signal from a bigger picture, and we're responding to say, okay, the way that I can hold my field from a centered and more empowered way is to be off the grid, to be in nature, to meditate, to chant, whatever it might be. And we've got more and more people who do that organically, and it starts to, we all arc together energetically. And I like to bring intentionality to that, where it's like part of my meditation is that, like, okay, imagining myself as a great light, and then intentionally arcing my light to other lights and being part of a higher grid and allowing that to be anchored on this planet.
I love that. And, for those of us who are not centered and grounded, might really feel like they're being whipped around right now. Because, the light is increasing and it's like a dust storm, right? It's like somebody's shaking a tree and shaking all the apples out of it. So, like, if you're the one being shook, energetically, it's going to feel bad. So the way to avoid that experience is to go get grounded, to start the path of being that transparent, vulnerable, authentic self, to start working with your higher self and your spirit on the inside of you to anchor you in light and to ground you to the earth and to be clearing out your pipes, right? So that you have less debris that needs to be shook out, of you. And that's by doing your shadow work. That means just being aware of your triggers, being aware of being angry, not stepping over it and going, oh, well, I'll look at that later. Or no, I don't want to feel that. So I'll just close. No, it's like you said, like stopping, looking at it, being with it, sitting with it, even 5 minutes, even a few minutes, just breathing with the feeling before moving on. It's like, ooh, I'm really angry. And I'm just going to close my eyes and just breathe for 3 deep breaths and just let myself feel that, really feel it. Or I feel really sad. I feel a waft of sadness. I don't know where it came from. Okay, I'm just going to sit and be with it for a few minutes and just let it pass through me. These are ways we can be in service to ourselves and others. And you can do fire ceremony. I like to burn stuff. So I'll write down all the things, you can write down your whole story of all the things that pissed you off today or whatever, that you're like, I don't think it should be like this. And I don't like that. And why are they doing this? And especially if you have judgments about a specific person, you should really just be writing all that out. And then burn and release it. Give it to a power greater than you. Give it to fire, grandfather fire, one of the oldest elements. Release it. Help me to let go so that I don't have to be flung about, in this tornado on the outside. I can come to the center of the tornado where there is the light, the concentrated light of myself. And all this other stuff, I can just let it go. I don't need to identify as the stuff that's being tossed out. I can identify as the light in the center of it.
Beautiful. I love that.
And I also like Paul Selig's work. So powerful. Anybody listen to I Am Word, but he gives us words for this. I know who I am in truth and love. I know what I am in truth and love. I know how I serve in truth and love. I am here. I am here. I am here. I am free. I am free. I am free. I have come. I am in the upper room. And this is the piece I love. I lift all that I see before me to the upper room to be reknown, rearticulated, recalibrated at a higher octave of expression. Word I am word with this intention. Like just simply the power of holding that as you tap into your light and you know who you are, walking around saying that, you see something out there in social media and you go, ooh, I lift all that I see before me to the upper realm. Everybody, everything.
That. Yes, that is so powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
We're doing this together. I love your vision. I just wanted to augment. It's like, yes, I'm connecting my light to other lights. I'm part of a massive grid. We're lifting this together. We're not doing this alone. And how powerful it is that we have so many awakened ones that are bringing our consciousness to it. And I wanted to say one of my mentors was saying about when we look out on social media, people really are kind of losing their stuff right now, so let's have grace and compassion for each other.
Yes.
Because you today, me tomorrow, there could be something that just touches a deep wound inside and we just lose it. And that day's posts are like, you're looking at that person like this person just went insane. Okay, they're in psychosis. So instead of judging, just like love on that person. There's a wound that they're healing that really hurts. And they're doing it for themselves, but also humanity. Yes. And just have grace. If your favorite spiritual teacher goes insane for a week, forgive them. They are going through it too. We're all human. Nobody's here that's like ascended completely and walking the planet as some kind of Buddha. Nobody yet. Maybe all of us will do it together. I hope that's the case.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, the compassion, it really comes down to the compassion, that ability to let people off the hook. Absolutely. I think that is so powerful. And it includes us. Let yourself off the hook too. We're all dealing with some really raw things right now. And depending on the levels that we're looking at it, it is triggering. It's triggering us. It's triggering, like you've talked about. I mean, I love you're bringing in the ancestors and we are this amalgamation of our composite is made up of so many elements, and we're all doing the best we can. And so it's a journey, and let's hold things tenderly.
Yeah, tenderly with grace. And you know what? Do your best. That's why that's the fourth agreement. Do your best. Your best today might be 10% of what you can do tomorrow, and that's okay. Do your best. Yeah. If you need to go out in nature and relax, and do it for all of us,
Yeah.
Like take a rest day. I go float. I like to float in my float pod, my sensory deprivation for like 2.5 hours. I'm in there. Sometimes I wake myself up snoring.
In the water?
Yeah, because it's on salt water, right? So you're lying back of that little halo thing that you stick your head on and you just float, naked. And you're just lying there like, detox me, please. I'm in there, detox me, splashing myself.
Yeah.
And then I'll just like zone out. And pretty soon it's like, like, oh, I fell asleep. I was supposed to be meditating. But I feel like it's still healing. So whatever you guys need, if you fall over meditating, sitting, yeah, it's okay. Just whatever you need to do to take care of yourself, people.
Yes.
Yeah, be gracious to yourself. Goodness sakes. This is one of the most intense times on the planet probably ever. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm going to put a link to Kara's book so you can check it out. And it's probably on Amazon, right? Your Authentic Awakening, a guide to everyday spiritual living.
And Barnes and Noble and all those good places, whatever people prefer. And Audible, there's an audio version. A lot of podcast listeners like the audio.
Yeah, you have a beautiful voice. Of course they do.
Oh, thank you. Likewise.
And there's also free resources section, free powerful guided meditations at karagoodwin.com. That link will be in the show notes. Is there anything else you want to leave people with before we head out?
I think we've covered a lot of great ground, and I think that it's just important for people to recognize that we're all playing our own role through this, and we can go through it together, and we are united. So I do encourage people to, if you're a meditator, just connect, use that quantum space, use your intention to connect. I love the affirmations that you were bringing forth. I think those would be very, very powerful for people to incorporate, but just don't underestimate. It's really easy to feel pulled around right now and ineffective because some of the things are so big that it can feel like, what can I do? But really cultivating that ability to just be holding your space in balance. I think that a lot of people have no idea just how powerful that is.
Yeah, really powerful. Absolutely it is. It radiates. Light radiates around the planet like 7 times a minute or something. I don't know. Jennifer Huff knows those statistics. I don't know those. She knows physics. but a lot
Yeah.
quickly. So your light, your radiance, your inner healing of a shadow that you just discovered, as soon as you solve that puzzle, the solution goes around the planet for everybody to share. So like solve the puzzles, like within yourself, heal, reclaim those pieces and benefiting everybody. I love it. So we're going to give you guys kisses on the way out. Please like and subscribe and share and this episode out with anybody that you think could benefit from it. And you can always ask permission, just to ask if they are open. Are you open? I listened to this great podcast. Are you open? I want to share it with you. And just that's respectful, and they're just like, you need this.
Yeah. Oh, how nice is it when somebody says like, oh, this made me think of you. I think you'd like it. Like we want it, like that's really sweet. But I love calling out the difference between those. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I've attended a lot of holistic networking events. Anyway, so we're not fixing anybody. Don't fix anybody. Just, see if they're interested and share it, because the more beauty goes around the planet, the better we all are. And I'm going to give kisses. Would you like to join me?
Yes.
Okay, here come your kisses, everybody. Wow. Love you, everybody.
Love you.
See you next time on Soul Nectar Show. Bye for now. If you found even one gold nugget in this episode of Soul Nectar Show, will you do us a favor? Will you subscribe, like, and share this episode? Maybe even write a comment and let us know what you thought about it. We really, really want to engage with you at a much deeper level. Let's be part of community together. Have a great week, everyone. Bye for now. To dive in deeper to nourishing conversation, visit soulnectar.show.
Soul Nectar Show. Awaken, awake, show. Take a sip from the drip of nectar from the source of who you are.